What was your mother's birthday, and what day did she die? And what do you remember about your mother?
Well, Mother's birthday is the 3rd day of February, and she died the 10th March in 1921.
In 21. You said the other day when you were talking about her, she was 52
when she died.
That's young, ain't it, Dixie?
Yes, it is.
And you were telling Jeannie and I about how she got sick and that she didn't want to leave you.
Well, Cardin and Linwood was both married, and they lived in Stephenville. And they came up to visit with us at La Panne on one Sunday. And they wanted Mother to go home with them and stay till the next Sunday, and they'd bring her back. She said, "Oh, I can't go off and leave Dixie with all this work to do."
How old were you then, Aunt Dixie?
I guess I was about 17 or 18. I was still in school. It was my junior year in high school. And she said, "I'll go if y'all will put me on the train and let me come to Granbury Wednesday, and then I can get on the nail hack," we call it nail hack, that come on the La Panne. And they said, "All right." Well, on Monday evening late, they called and said Mother was real bad sick.
Now, Sunday she went over there.
And Monday. And she had a little rising right under her left eye. And it got blood poison set up. And of course, those days they didn't have anything to fight blood poison with.
No penicillin or anything.
So Father and Bill and Spunky left to go down there to Stephenville. And next morning they called and said Mother had passed away. And for us to get ready and come on down, they'd bury her there at Valley Grove. But Valley Grove was more or less just a kinfolk cemetery.
And now I think we went out there with you and Daddy when we went to homecoming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did, and I've got some pictures of it too. Mm-hmm. And
was her funeral in the Baptist church at Stephenville?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at Valley Grove. Yeah.
There was a church out at Valley Grove.
Yeah, that's where we all went to church there at Valley Grove, and
before you moved to La Panne, church.
Yeah.
You know what? When I asked Daddy the other day what he remembered about Uncle Pete and about Aunt Dixie and different ones, you know what he said when I asked him what he remembered about you? He said, "Tomboy." He said she could ride any horse as fast as we could. She could climb any tree as high as we could.
That's right.
Jump off any bluff.
Put a rope up in the tree and swing across the river. I'd do that just as good as they could.
What about, I think one time you told me about riding a horse to school and that it would go too fast or you couldn't stop it or something. You were afraid to tell your dad.
It was a regular racehorse.
A racehorse.
And when they wasn't working it in the field, I'd ride it to school. And there's a path we had to cross the creek, Kickapoo Creek, or river, whichever one you want to call it. And with that path just before got to this big gate, it was just wasn't any trees or anything. And I don't know how many times, and I didn't let my daddy know it, that when I come out of that trees,
the horse was already running.
The mules would come after me just as hard as they could come with the ears back, just as hard as they could come. Well, being this horse could outrun them, I'd get to that gate, I'd slip over the saddle and get that gate open and get through there just before the mules got there. But you never did tell your daddy. I didn't tell my daddy because I knew I'd have to walk to school.
What do you remember about after your mother died, trying to run the house and take care of the kids?
Oh, it was quite a task, I guess you'd call it. Oh, of course, that was in March when Mother died, and we'd kind of organized. The boys was all good to help, but
you still had the responsibility.
Yeah, and I'd cook breakfast, and we'd get off to school, and I'd let the boys change clothes twice a week. They wore blue overalls and blue shirts. And on Saturday was our wash day. And we had a big old black pot that the boys would carry water from the creek, fill that pot up and build a fire. And so we'd get all that washing done. And house cleaned up. Of course, we had to strip the beds once a week. And where we live, there's lots of trees around, and the leaves would fall. Well, I'd get through with everything in the house. I'd get out there and sweep those leaves up, and the boys would have to carry them off. And one day, I couldn't find them. I'd call them, and I couldn't hear them. So directly I looked under the house. And they were, when I started around the house one way, they'd go around the other way. So I caught them and made them take those leaves off. And we'd get all this done. Of course, those days we had lots of ironing to do. And go to a party that night. Get up the next morning, cook part of the dinner for Sunday dinner, and get to church in time to teach Sunday school class. I had the little children.
How old were Uncle Spunky and Uncle Bill when your mother died?
Well, let's see. They was born in 1911 and she died in 1921, so they'd be about...
So that's a real sad time, I know, for you. It still hurts me to know that today something could have been done for her.
Yes, if they had what they do nowadays.
And you all needed her so much.
Oh, it just looked like we just couldn't give her up. In the same way as the Triplets, when they was born, if they'd have had then what we have now, they could have saved that baby.
Do you know what was wrong with the baby that died?
Well, it's just weak and needed extra nourishment, I guess. And
was it not as large as the other two?
Not quite. No, it didn't weigh quite as much.
Well, it must have been pretty strong, too. I lived about a month.
Well, about 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Really.
And your mother had, was it 2 other children that didn't live besides the Triplets?
Well, one of the little girls was 18 months old. She was just younger than Linwood. And she had measles and whooping cough. And it killed her.
And it killed her.
And then one baby was born dead. A little boy.
A little boy. And where did that baby come?
When we lived in Stephenville.
No, I mean, what age? Would it have been younger than you or older than you or
well,
what age?
It would have been just younger than between John Mack and Harry. I remember the little thing. They laid it out on a quilt on the floor. And I was bending over it. Mother said, the little thing's dead. And so Uncle Ike, Mother's youngest brother, and my daddy got it and put it in the back of the carriage. And I wanted to go with them so bad to bury it, but they didn't let me go.
And you didn't have a funeral for it?
I don't think so. I think they just took it and buried it down there on where the Battle Grove Cemetery is.
Oh dear, some people talk about the good old days, but I don't know about the good old days. I kind of like right now.
Yeah.
I kind of like what you said the doctor told you last week when you had your yearly checkup, nearly 84. What did he say?
He just shook his head and said, I can't find anything wrong with you.
Being a doctor, it looks like he could find something wrong with you, so he could feather his neck a little bit
what
more.
kind of medicine I took. I told him I took a vitamin C and another kind of medicine that kind of like vitamins. Once a day. He said, just once a day. I said, yeah, once a day.
He might start getting a few hints from you on on how to practice medicine.
And, when I went to see him before, this medicine, he prescribed it for me. And he said, take one of those tablets once a day. He said, it kind of helps build up the blood and everything. And I got some of it, and you know what it said on there? It said for pregnant women.
Well, don't knock it, it's working.
So I'm still taking it.
What about your mother's personality? What do you remember about her? Was she a quiet person, or was she kind of...
Yeah, she was quiet, and but still, she had...
Was she happy?
Oh, yes, she was real happy, and she never did have to scold us or anything much, because I don't know, this kind of person she was. We wanted to mind her.
You wanted to please her. What about your daddy? What about his personality?
Well, he also had an outstanding personality.
You kids couldn't help but all be pretty special and sweet. You had good parents.
I know it.
Margaret Ann said you came from good stock.
That's right. And
of all of your brothers, which one do you think looks or acts more like your daddy?
Well, I really don't know. I guess I can just see my daddy in every one of them.
In every one of them. That's good. I'm glad you told me that. You were telling Jeannie and I the other day about your mother taught you how to make biscuits.
Yeah. Used to, when they had babies, they'd keep them and make them stay in bed for 10 days or 2 weeks. And I was, I guess, 10 years old. And Mother said, I got to teach you how to make biscuits.
Did she have any idea that there were going to be more than one?
If she did, I didn't know it. I didn't know. But anyway, we had a great big old wooden bowl, and we'd sift that flour and make a hole in the middle, and we used buttermilk then, and she'd tell me how much soda to put it to each cup of buttermilk, and how much lard, we called it lard, and everything. So she taught me how to
stand on a box to reach the cabinet.
I sure did. And so I had to make biscuits then for a long time, but nowadays, instead of making biscuit, I buy them ready.
Ready, the kind you whop?
Yeah.
You whop them on
I do make rolls, and freeze them, yeast rolls, but as far as making what you call biscuit, I do if I caught in a tight, but
you don't make a habit out of it.
No.
And who named you?
My grandmother Robert's mother's mother. They came from Virginia, and she named me Dixie, Virginia.
Oh. I have a note here, something that when you were talking to Jeannie and I about a Snuff story, and I can't remember.
About a Snuff?
Uh-huh.
Oh. one of our neighbor ladies, Miss Masterson.
Oh, yes, I remember.
She came to see Mother every week. And she'd always have her little can of Snuff and just sit there and rock and look like that was so good, and we kids just wanted the taste of it so bad. And my brothers now put me up to it. They fixed my toothbrush for me. And they said, and she was sitting with her back to the door, one of the doors, and so they put me up to get it. So I crawled in there, got that can, it's sitting right there beside of her. She didn't know it.
But your mother did.
Yeah, I remember now that Mother saw all of that take place. And I'm sure she saw us out the window. So I took that there, and every one of them had their brush ready. You never saw so much spitting. They said, take it back. So I crawled in there and put it back. Miss Masterson never did know it.
Oh, dear, and you were telling Jeannie and I, too, about your grandmother Roberts that didn't allow any bad words. Yeah. She said, oh, wash your mouth out with fly soap. That's the only kind of soap we had those days. And so they had some hogs, and they knew that they thought that just one of them was catching their chickens. And those hens, Grandpa tried to fix it so they couldn't get in there, but somehow or another they'd get in there. She said, I wished I knew which one it was. John Max says, Grandma, I know which one it was. She says, well, you come and show me. Well, all we little cousins followed him out there. John Mack got down on his knees and looked and says, there's a son of a bitch that got it right there. So we followed Grandma back to the house. And so she just went ahead of their work. You were waiting for the big workout.
We said, Grandma, aren't you going to wash his mouth out with fly soap? Oh, I was so glad to find out which one it was that I won't wash his mouth out.
Oh, dear. What do you remember about Grandma Roberts? What did she look like, and how did she act? What do you remember about, and Grandpa Roberts, too? Oh,
they were just, I guess, one reason my mother's such a wonderful woman.
They both were.
They were both just outstanding, and they always went to church. And in those days, there's quite a few Indians. And so I remember very well, one day I was calling them, and I said, Grandpa, you got a gun in your pocket? He said, yes. Said, I carry a gun and the Bible under one arm and gun on the other. The Indians might show up. And so,
you know, that is something. That is really beyond my thinking almost. You have to be afraid of Indians, and you carry a gun and a Bible when you're going to church.
Yeah.
That's something. What did he look like?
Well, he was just a real nice looking gentleman, you might say. He wore a little beard and sometimes mustache, but he was just...
And they said he had the cotton yarn?
Uh-huh.
He must have done... Probably that was like a pretty good business, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
He must have been a good businessman.
Yeah, I guess so.
What, your cousins, do you remember a favorite cousin that you liked?
Well, I had several favorite cousins, all of them my age. One of them was Dora Graves, that's Mother's sister's boy. One is Neil Roberts, Mother's brother's boy. And Grace Ashworth.
No, I don't know her.
You ought to remember Grace.
Bellamy is who I'm thinking about.
She married Bellamy.
Oh, okay. That's
Mayor Reed.
Okay.
Bellamy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's about, I guess, 8 of Mother's brothers and sisters lived all around there, and all of them had one my age, and naturally, there's the one that's from the Doyle. They lived, I guess, closest to us, and I was with him, maybe more. And we was all over there one day, and his daddy was the kind of fellow that he thought everybody needed to wait on him. So he was fixing to go to a little place there close to Stingville, see about his school teacher. Well, the boys had to get his horses and hitch him up to the carriage, and they done this and done that for him. And the road went to Stingville is just about far from here to this road out there, from where Aunt May and Uncle Will lived. And after he turned on that road, Doyle pulled off his cap and jumped up and said, "Thank God Billy's gone." Well, Aunt May laughed too. And he didn't believe in drinking ice in the water. And so, but Aunt May'd go ahead and get some anyway. So, and he wanted the boys to go down to the well. It was down on the creek. Had to go down the hill. He told them, go get him a bucket of well water. So they got some of that ice water, sat down on the back steps, and waited till about long enough for them to go down to the well and back. And they took that water in there to Uncle Will. He drank a big dipper full. I wouldn't trade my good old well water for no man's ice water. That's just one of the many things that those
kids did to him. The other day, I think you said something about somebody throwing rocks down the fireplace.
Yeah, that's Harry and Judd. Pete walked to school. He taught school, a little place called Natty Flat, this special time. And it was winter weather, cold, and so he come in and pulled his shoes off and sitting there in front of the fireplace warming his feet. And Harry and Judd finally got a rock down the chimney, and here it come and just hit that coals of fire and just went all over Pete's feet. He jumped up, lit out barefooted after him. He says, "The farther you run, the harder I'll whip." So he caught him up there about the end of the little orchard. He bristled their little honey.
Daddy and Uncle Jack, put them together, they were kind of bad news, weren't they?
Well, one couldn't think of it other than could.
And what do you remember about Daddy when he was a little boy?
Well,
was he kind of hard-headed like he is now?
Yeah, I guess so. And he helped a lot with when they bale hay. They kind of helped neighbors, and I don't know just exactly what he done, but he was a little helper. And so...
Was he always kind of small for his age?
Yeah, kind of small. And Linwood, somehow or another, named him Hornet.
And that stuck?
That's still what Linwood called him.
Still what he called him.
When we went out there last March to see him, of course he'd been in this home for a long time. He didn't know very much, but he recognized me, and Harry standing right behind me. He says, "There's old Hornet." So we knew that he knew who we were.
He really did. Daddy said that we were talking about your dad's mother and daddy, James Pemberton Hewlett and Mary Massey Spillman, but he died before any of you ever knew him. And Daddy said he thought that his grandmother, Mary Massey Spellman, came to visit y'all before he was born, and he said, I think Dixie remembers her.
Well, I just barely do, yeah.
What do you remember about her when she came?
Not too much, only I just knew she's my daddy's mother, and I just don't remember much about it.
Isn't it sad that in those days when you moved more than a few miles away that you didn't get to see your family very much?
That's right.
Did you get to go over to Valley Grove to visit your grandpa and grandma Roberts very often?
Well, we tried to go once a year. And
that wasn't very far, was it?
No, it was about, I guess 25 miles. And Mother'd fix our dinner. We'd get to what place called Morgan's Meal about halfway, and we'd eat our dinner.
Oh, I bet that was an exciting, happy time to get to go.
And then we'd get on down there before night, and we'd have such a good time.
Oh dear. Well, wouldn't you love to relive a time like that again?
Yeah, I sure would.
Did your grandpa and grandma love all of you? I know there were a lot of grandchildren.
It looked like that they just as proud of us if we were their own kids, and
they loved you.
They loved us. They sure did.
Did you go to Grandpa Robert's funeral? You know, you gave me a copy of the obituary. Were you at the funeral? He must have been a very special person.
Oh, he was. He was outstanding not only with his own folks, but with everybody. Everybody loved Grandpa. Were you baptized in Kickapoo Creek? I've heard Daddy say that's where he was. Do you remember, did you go to a tabernacle when you were converted, or... Well, was it in a church? It was under an old brush arbor. They'd build, that's a few miles from the pan. And they'd build this brush arbor, and all the different churches would have their revival there. So, this particular time, I was about 13, I guess, when I was converted. And when the time come for us to... Did you go down to the front, to make public like we do? The preacher called us to come down, wanted to join the church. And I remember it just as plain, Jerry Ann, if it had happened this morning. When that preacher took my hand, there's a big old book, looked like a Bible, opened up, and a hand up like that, and name was written down about 2/3 of the way down. You saw that? I saw that. You're giving me chills. I saw that. Where did you see it? Like, it was just in the kind of the air. When he took my hand, it was just right up there. That book opened up, and you've never had any doubts about your salvation. No. And one of these days, I'm going to get Arlena to paint me a picture of that. If you describe it to her, I bet she can. I think she can. I'm going to see if she can't do that. Well, I sure want to see her when you get her to do that. I believe. And they were saying, is my name written there? Is my name written there? Do you think your mother was a big influence on all of you about religion and about God? I sure do. I know that this particular time that I was converted, I wanted to, but I didn't hardly know how to go about it. And Mother was cooking, and she said, "What's been the matter with you?" She said, "Do you want to join the church, be converted?" I said, "I sure do, Mother." She said, "Well, tonight when we go to church, you go up and take the That's the preacher knows that
she was sensitive enough to you that she knew something was bothering you. Let's talk about Aunt Ducky a little bit and have a few chuckles. She was really different than you, wasn't she?
Well, in a way, and she thought that we had enough babies, children without any more. And
I can see why she might would think that.
She was a few years older than me, but anyway, we went over to the neighbor's house to stay, and they sent after us to come home, and it's kind of early in the morning, and Father said, well, y'all go in and see the babies. Said there's 3 of them. Dusky named them. Said shit, far, and toe.
Oh no. Isn't that funny how she was kind of put out about it then, and who did she grow to love the most and depend on the most?
I guess Bill.
I bet so.
Bill and Spunky, and of course
they lived down there together.
Yeah. Bill and Spunky, and then after Spunky married, well, of course it's just she and Bill, and yeah, she depended on them more than she did anybody else.
Well, I remember growing up how much I loved you and Aunt Ducky both, but it seemed to me like you were different. You were kind of like a mother, you know, giving us cookies and taking care of us. And Aunt Ducky always, well, you know, when I was little, I didn't know many ladies that smoked. Now you know a lot, but then I didn't. And she always had real cute clothes, and I just thought she lived a glamorous life, but it ended up that I felt sorry for her.
Oh, yes.
Because she didn't have any.
She was a wonderful person, but she was different. And
a very creative person. And I bet she was a very good nurse, and I bet
she was outstanding nurse.
Her patients probably loved her a lot because she took care of them, and she had a lot of love and compassion for everybody.
Oh, yeah, she did.
She told me one time that she meditated every morning, and I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, it's kind of like I pray for everybody. She said, I think about Dixie and her family and each one of them, and Harry, and you know, she named all of her brothers, and she said, I just thank God for them and ask God to bless them all. And she had a lot of different personalities.
Oh, yes. But as far as ever getting married, I don't guess she really wanted to. She had some real close friends that I thought
that she might marry.
That she might marry, but she never did.
Did she date?
Yes, she dated some.
Did your little brothers ever embarrass you when your boyfriend came?
Oh my goodness! I'll tell you, this one special thing that they done that I still like to shake your daddy for.
Oh, no.
This boy, he was more serious than I was. He wanted us to get married, but he just, I guess, well, I wasn't ready, or he wasn't the one or something. But anyway, we had a date. He come after me in a buggy, and when we went out to get in the buggy, those boys had put horse turds in there.
Oh, no.
Yes, they did.
Oh, no.
And
did your boyfriend laugh, or did he get
No,
he didn't laugh.
And he got a little stick of a thing and got him out.
And then you went on your merry way. Did you go to dances when you were young?
Yeah.
Did you like to dance?
Waltz was the only kind of dance that I knew how to do, but every Saturday night we'd have a party and nearly always
have a dance.
So I enjoyed it.
What subject in school did you like the most? Did you like any particular thing?
Well, I guess mathematics more than anything else. It seemed like it was easy for me. I know that one year we got through with arithmetic book, and the teacher wanted us to take algebra. That is about a month before school was out, so we'd be kind of familiar with it the next year. Is all that going down? Anyway, it was easy for me. Just real easy. And Eloise Hale, one of my good friends, it was just hard. She just couldn't. So he gave us a test one day. And he said, all of you pass out at recess hour except Dixie. Well, what do you want with me? So the rest of them left, and he looked me over his glasses and said, what did you help Eloise for? I said, I didn't help Eloise. I'd know your figures if they were walking around in New York City. Said, that's not going to help her. And I went,
Has she copied your paper?
She didn't copy it. She just handed it in that I gave to her. She's supposed to copy it, but she didn't have time.
Oh.
So I went out there and I said, Eloise, why didn't you work that problem out? I didn't have time. I just didn't have time.
She just turned yours in. Oh, my word.
I said, well,
that's kind of dumb to even try that.
He said, don't you ever do that anymore. Said, it don't help them.
Sure. Do you remember your first day at school? The first day of school?
Yeah. And the teacher told us had us to go up to the blackboard. And I didn't know what to do about going to the bathroom. And
oh dear.
That pee went plumb down. The teacher come over and she
said, needed to go and you
needed to go to the bathroom, but
you didn't know what to do.
I didn't know what to do.
I can understand a little.
The teacher come and got a hold of my arm and she says, next time that you want to do that, you tell me and I'll show you where to go. And she showed me where the bathroom was. And
did you have an indoor bathroom or did you go out?
Yeah, it was kind of indoors, like.
Kind of indoors. Now you were born where?
Down close to Glen Rose, on the Brazos River.
Was that George's Creek?
George's Creek, And they moved from there to Stephenville when I was just a few months old.
Were any of the children born at Stephenville?
Well,
probably.
Yeah. John Mack and Harry and Judd was all born there. Bill and Spunky was the only one born in La Pan.
At La Pan.
And so they had to, of course, move in wagons those days and cross the river, and there's quicksand, and they had to whip those horses, they said, to make them get across before they sunk. And Linwood and Carton had on black catatees, and they just thought they had to take those cats with them. And there's a nigger was not going to drive on the wagons. He says, don't you put them cats in my wagon. And they didn't.
Superstitious. Let's see. How old were you when you first came out here? Did you come and stay? The first time you came, did you stay? You never did go back, other than to visit. How old were you then?
About 21, I guess. And you want to know how long I went with Claude before we married?
Seemed like I heard you say that you didn't know him very long, but you fell pretty quick.
Yeah. Those days, there's just all young folks in the community kind of met together. And this particular Saturday night,
now this is out here.
That we was living over there.
You were living with your dad? Did he come to you? And Daddy and Uncle Judd and Bill and Spunky and...
Yeah, we was all living over there close to where Mr. Moore, where he lived, you know. And
in that house where Mr. Moore used to live? That turned out to be the...
well, I think it was, or that over there somewhere, I'm not sure. But anyway, it seemed like, I don't know why, but Claude just kind of fell for me.
I bet I know why. And I bet you were a pretty good looker. Those brown eyes.
So, his mother and daddy was going to leave in about 3 weeks to go to California just for her health. Her health was very bad. And they're going to take 2 cars. And one of them is fixed kind of a bed like, so his mother could rest in that while they was traveling. And Lucille, Essie was married, and Lucille had a little girl about 2 years old. And they rode with grandson and grandma, and Carden, Claude, and me, and Ted, and Lucian Grove all rode in the other car.
And you went to California?
Well, going back when we got married, I said, what will your folks think? Us getting married that quick? I'm not about to go off to some of these other boys that had you before I got back. And
she wasn't going to leave.
And I said, well, you ask them what they think. And he said they said it'd be all right. And so we left home Sunday morning, the first day of July. Essie and Walter was living over close to Lorenzo. And we had to go get her, so he got the marriage license. So in those days, they really did chivalry, everybody. And Grandpa, Claude's daddy, said, y'all get ready and go up to Sam's. It was Grandpa, we call Grandpa,
Sam Coleman.
Uncle Sam Coleman. They were going to go with us. He and Aunt Lenny and their 4 children.
And y'all had a big family.
Stay all night with them, and they won't know where to find you to chivalry you. So that's what we done. We left and went up there to spend the night. So
what did they do when they chivalried you?
They'd get a hold of the boy and take him off, and maybe not let him show up for 2 or 3 days. And just wasn't mean, but just
aggravating.
Yeah. And anyway, I believe it was 13 it went on the honeymoon.
Oh, dear.
And we camped out every night. And they fixed a little tent where Claude and me'd have our bed in by ourselves.
How long did it take you to get to California?
Well, we was gone 2 months from home.
Did you enjoy that?
I enjoyed it, but I got so homesick to see my daddy, I couldn't hardly stand it. I wanted to see my daddy. And
did your daddy mind that you got married and went off like that? Did he?
Well, if he did, he didn't.
He didn't let on.
I
bet he missed his Dixie too.
Ooh, I know he did.
But now Aunt Ducky wasn't with y'all then, was she?
No, she was
in nursing school.
Mm-hmm.
Had you ever been on a trip like that before?
No.
Did you see some sights and
scenery? Yeah, we were.
What do you remember that impressed you the most that you saw?
I guess it was mountains and things in Colorado. We stayed there. We'd maybe not travel very far, and one day they want to see the pretty scenery and everything, so we'd camp out on those mountains or foot of the mountains and on rivers and different things.
And cook out? You didn't eat out or anything, did you? And had your beds and...
Only time we had a bed to sleep in, Claude's brother, Wheeler, died. He'd just been married 2 years, and his wife went to California to live with her folks. They lived in Fresno, California. And we went by to see them while they gave Claude and me a bed to sleep in. And then on our way back, there's some of their friends that used to live here in this, where this house is, lived in Arizona. And we stopped to visit them, and they gave us a bed to sleep in.
So that was your honeymoon.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you wore on your wedding day? Do you remember if you had many clothes to take with you on your trip?
They had a store over here at Wilson then, and they had some material. It's some pretty blue silk. And I got it, and Inez, Linma's wife, and me together made my wedding dress. And
I bet it was pretty.
We thought it was pretty.
You thought it was. Do you have any pictures?
I don't guess I do. I wish I did.
Okay. What about setting up housekeeping? Did you have to go buy things, or how did you? What did you get, like your bed and your
our first year, of course, this was in July when we married, and we lived with his mother and daddy. And when it come time to pick cotton, we picked cotton. And
who took care of the cotton while you were going to California?
There's still 3 different rent houses here, and they took care of it.
They took care of it.
And
I guess that was the first of a lot of trips you and Uncle Claude took. Y'all traveled a lot.
Yeah, that was started it.
What is the first that you remember of, maybe what's your favorite trip that you remember? The best time that you had?
I guess it was the time that we took a long trip and went to just all those beautiful mountains and everything, and Yellowstone Park, I guess, is one of the most outstanding
that you've been to. Daddy told me that you had the wedding here when he and Mother got married at your house. What do you remember about Mother and Daddy's wedding?
Well,
had you met Mother before then?
Oh, yes. And I was just happy that they wanted to get married here, and they stood up. Those days we just had that living room and dining room in there, and they stood up in front of the buffet, and the Methodist preacher performed the ceremony.
And you had a wedding dinner that day for them?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Do you remember if Mother and Daddy came, or was Mother by herself when she came down? Do you remember who came from Levelland?
I don't remember for sure, but I don't much believe her Mother and Daddy come. I don't believe.
I remember coming over here so many times when I was little, and how much I loved to come, and you always could find something, a bottle or a box or something that was entertaining, and a cookie to eat, and how much fun it was when I tried to keep up with Jim and Little Pete.
Yeah.
Sometimes they ran off and left me, but not often. I remember how much I wanted to be as old as Jim, and just as I nearly was there, he'd jump up another number. His birthday is June the 15th? 16th. So when I think I was going to be as old as him, the next time I'd see him, he would be 1 year older, and I never could catch up with him.
Very many days.
No, there wasn't. I remember lots of kinfolks came over here a lot of times, and one night, how many people stayed all night with you when it...
I believe it was 43.
It rained, didn't it?
It rained, and Pete said, I'm going to take my boys, we're going home.
Sounds about like him.
Well, after a while here, they come walking in muddy and wet. They got down there and got stuck.
I bet y'all had fun, didn't you?
Yeah. And we fixed bed, pallets all over the place. Claude says, well, one thing about it, they can't have my bed, and they didn't get his bed either.
That's good. That's the way it ought to be. That's the way it ought to be. What do you remember about Uncle Judd? You know, he's always special to me, too.
Well,
he lived here so
to me, in a way, I loved him better than I did any of my other brothers. I don't know why, but there's something about him that he reminded me so much of Mother, more so than any of the others seemed like.
And you felt responsibility toward him, and maybe because he was a pretty little fella too.
Yeah, he wasn't too big.
Let's see if there's anything else I can think of. It's hard to keep talking sometimes. I had my notes. Oh, what about Daddy? I remember, and Uncle Judd too, have talked about an Uncle Bunky a lot.
Oh, Uncle Bunky was Father's brother that lived down George's Creek, and he was a very, very wonderful person.
Did he make you think of your dad?
Yeah, there's a whole lot alike.
A lot alike. Did you know any of his children? Were you close to
Oh, yeah.
Who were some of his children that would be your cousins?
Jim Hewitt and Clarence Hewitt and Alfred Hewitt and May and Norma and...
Those were his children, or were they his grandchildren? Like Jim Hewitt would be Uncle Bunky's grandchild, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
See, Jim told me his dad's name's Alfred. So Uncle Bunky would have been Jim Hewitt's grandfather.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Jim Hewitt is a wonderful person.
Yeah, he is.
He sure... Have you heard from any of them?
No, I haven't. Haven't heard from them in some time. Last count, they're doing all right.
Well, Aunt Dixie, if you want to, can you think of any funny stories or anything?
I'll think of some after we quit.
Talk a little bit about Uncle Bill and Uncle Spunky. About like when Uncle Spunky was sick when he was little, when he had polio.
Oh. I guess he's about 18 months old. And so it left him really crippled in his left leg from his hip down. And those days didn't have ways to treat him like they do now. And every day my daddy would just seem like hours at a time, rubbing, massaging that leg and having him to walk on it. And of course he was always crippled, but not so bad. And So we just thankful that he got
as good as he did.
Got as good as he did. And
what kind of personality did Uncle Bill have when he was young? Did he like to hunt then?
Yes, he was. He and Spunky, they just didn't even seem like brothers in lots of ways like that.
That's my opinion too. Uncle Bill he's so sweet. I really,
he's a wonderful
love him.
Wonderful person. And one reason I think that he didn't marry before he did, why, he felt like that he needed to take care of Dusky. And she'd quit nursing, she was at home. And so after she passed away, he married Bernice, and she was a wonderful person, but she just lived about a year died about a year after they married. And he buried her there at San Benito, big cemetery there. And then Arthur and Bernice were real close friends, and Bill already knew Arthur. And it wasn't too long till
they got married. Well, see, I didn't know Bernice very well, but Arthur I've come to know, and I love her.
She's just a wonderful person.
She told me something at the airport one day that I'll never forget. We were sitting there waiting for she and Uncle Bill to get on the plane, and there were a couple walked by that evidently had just got married and were going somewhere on their honeymoon by plane, and Aunt Arthur said, I feel so sorry for them. And I kind of looked at her with a question on my face, I know, because you don't think about feeling sorry for a newlywed couple. She said they have so much to learn, and said the lessons are so hard.
Well,
and that's true. It takes a lot of living to learn these things. And then she said, I wouldn't go back to the time before I knew Bill for anything in the world. And see, that tells you right there how much she loves him.
Mm-hmm.
And he loves her too.
And they just
seem perfect for one another. What about Uncle John? Was he always kind of... Now, to me, Uncle John was the different one.
Yeah. He never did have very much to say. He was kind of quiet. I guess about the quietest one of the bunch.
And he married Aunt Edna.
Yeah.
She did the talking for both of them, I bet, sometimes. Because she's anything but quiet to me.
He used to, when he was just a little boy, he'd just disappear for 3 or 4 days. He'd come in with possums, and one particular time, Father said, you get outside and pull all those clothes off and get in that water and get all that, we call them polecats then, skunks. Get all of that off of you before you come in the house. He had killed one, and he had that all over him. Oh, boy, how he did stink.
Did your father ever go to church with y'all?
Not too much. But he saw that we went. Well, he went quite a bit, but he never did join the church. But to me, I think he's got a place in heaven just the same as my mother does.
Well, Daddy said he kind of had a bad experience when he was growing up, maybe with his stepfather.
I think
maybe
so.
He didn't, and from what you tell me about him, it shouldn't or couldn't have been his fault. He might have just had a hard to get along with stepfather. A lot of them resent a stepchild, and they're not.
But he never did. He always saw that everybody went to church, and he didn't always go, but somehow or another he never did.
What do you remember? What kind of foods did you eat? What kind of meals did your mother prepare for you?
We milked lots of cows. We had sweet milk and cornbread and
Milk and cornbread. Yes.
For supper most of the time. That is one of our main meals. It's cornbread and sweet milk for supper. But Mother always fixed a good balanced meal. And
did she have to start cooking and preparing a meal early in the morning to have that much food? I mean, that's a big meal every day.
I know it. Yeah, I don't know just how she managed it, but...
Did she ever complain about it?
If she did, she didn't let us hear.
Did she ever complain about not feeling well? Her feet hurt or something?
No.
I'm trying to find something wrong with you.
We used to, when we'd have our revivals and things, we'd have the preachers come out. There's usually two of them, and eat with us, and then other special folks come.
You'd have a special meal?
We'd have a special meal, but one of my jobs is stand up and with a little outfit and keep the pies off the table. And I'd watch, hoping they wouldn't eat all that up for me.
Before you got to eat.
But there's always plenty left for me. But I was always
free. You know, that doesn't seem right now for the children to have to wait while they eat.
And that's one thing I've done. I never did make my little ones.
I remember that too. We ate. It might have been, you had 3 tables, a card table and a table and the dining room table, and we could sit on the floor with our plate, but we got to eat when we were over here. I remember y'all used to come and see us when on Saturday night, and we got the Red Funnies on Saturday, and Jim and Malcolm and Juanelle always liked to read the funny paper, and Jim and I used to catch Millers and put them down in the chimney on the lamp. That was awful. I really enjoyed Jim. I loved him a lot. I really did. We had some good times.
Yeah. I remember one time particularly that Spunky and Bill was just little, but they was old enough to know what possums were. And one of our neighbors, they liked possum, and Mother never would want to cook a possum. And this neighbor lady, she said, "Let me cook one and I'll bring it over there for y'all." And she had it prepared. I can see it now, just there on the table. And Spunky wasn't very big, but he knew what a possum was. He said, in a high chair like, and Mother gave him a piece of possum. He got up to his mouth and didn't anybody eat a bite of that possum.
Oh dear. Oh man.
Oh.
What do you think of when you think about Uncle Pete?
Well, he was, I guess, one of the best persons that ever lived. And why he never did marry, I don't know. But anyway, he had a sweetheart one time that I think that he really, only one he ever really loved well enough to marry, and she married somebody else.
Oh my.
And you know, by him adopting these boys, that he'd have made a mighty good daddy.
Yes. And I wish that he could have. Now John has been so sweet, but it always hurts me to think about the pain that Uncle Pete suffered. And all he ever tried to do was good and to love and to help.
Yeah.
And he didn't get repaid. October the 27th, 1985. Listen, Daddy really remembers going to the circus. He remembers, he said he couldn't see and then he could see. the elephants and everything going by, and then when it was all over, he realized that your father had him sitting on one shoulder and Uncle Judd sitting on the other shoulder. So going to the circus must have been
Oh, I tell you, that's the reason we put rocks in our sacks so we'd have enough.
Now I want to hear all that story again. Walter thought that was pretty funny. Why did you do that?
He told us if we'd pick so much
Your father did?
cotton that morning, he'd take us to the circus that evening. Well, we had been at the parade, and we saw this little pony and different things, you know, and that's all we could talk about. And it come nearly time for dinner to come, and we knew we didn't have that many pounds of cotton. Am I telling you this now? Well, anyway, we didn't put little rocks, we put big rocks in our sack, so it'd weigh enough. And our daddy come, and he weighed the cotton, and he'd weigh one and look at us over his glasses, and weigh another one, and look at us over his glasses.
I can almost see from the picture.
Did every one of us that way. He said, I don't usually empty this.
Every one of you put rocks in your cotton. And you didn't put little ones, you put big ones. Well, had he asked you to pick just a whole lot of cotton?
He told us if we picked so many pounds apiece, I forget how many it was.
But was his request unreasonable?
Oh, no.
But
it just felt like
you were afraid that you weren't going to get that much.
Yeah, because we stood up and talked too much.
Oh,
that's what it was.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, he says, I don't usually empty the sacks till Monday morning, but I believe I'll empty them today. Don't you know we look guilty? And he'd empty them, and he'd kick those rocks out, kick them out. And he looked at us. He said, well, I'm going to take you anyway. we got to go to the circus.
Whose idea was that anyway? Putting rocks in there.
I don't remember.
It wasn't yours, was it?
Sounds like me.
It sounds about like you.
But all of we kids had needed to pick so much. I forget how much Judd and Harry and John and Pete and me.
And you thought so much about what you had seen at the parade.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Aunt Dixie, I think it's kind of a shame that kids today can't get that excited about anything.
Oh, I tell you.
They see so much and have so much and do so much that not anything can be that. To me, that's a precious experience.
Yeah, that's right.
To enjoy something so much. And what the circus is good as the parade? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. Look.
What did you like the best at the circus? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't know. It might have been the clowns, for one thing.
Did they have...
they had elephants. They had
the ladies and men that, on the swing up high.
Yeah.
That always interested me.
Yeah, all that, I don't know. We just so thrilled. Everything was good.
Where did they have it?
In Stephenville.
Uh-huh. That was quite a trip then to go over there.
Well, we lived just a few miles out of
Stephenville. Oh, this is before you lived in La Pan.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And we lived in La Pan when I was 8, so I was bound to have been around 8 or 7 or 8.
And another thing that you said you wanted to tell me was about when your father died.
Oh, yeah. Well, they lived out here, and his health got so bad. He had neuralgia, I guess it was, in his face, and this cold air and wind and things hurt it so bad. The doctor advised him to move to warmer country. So that's when they moved down in the valley. And that helped him a lot, but he got sick. I always will believe he had cancer in his stomach. But anyway,
I think Daddy thinks that too.
The doctors told him that he didn't have very much longer to live. And he wanted me to come see him, said I'd be ready to die if I could just see Dixie one more time. Well, that was just before Jim was born.
How long did he know this? How long did he know that he wasn't going to get well?
Well, I imagine about a month or so. Not
a long time.
But anyway, he died along the 1st of July, and Jim was born the 16th of June. And we asked the doctor if he thought it'd be all right. He said, no, don't you try to go on account of that baby. He said, don't you go. So I didn't get to go see my daddy.
Oh, dear. And I know when you've talked to me before that you always talk.
Oh, I wanted to go so bad.
You loved him. I remember when you told me about going on your honeymoon, and you were gone for all summer, weren't you?
Yeah, gone about 2 months.
And you were pretty ready to see your
father.
I
tell you, he was uppermost on my mind. Just get back home.
Well, you never had been away from him for that long time.
And he was a mother and daddy both to me, you know. And so, and I think he was just as proud to see me.
I bet so too. Well, then they took his body. He died in the valley. But they took his body to
the Stephenville, Valley Grove. That's where mother was buried.
That's right. With such a little baby, did you get to go to your father's funeral?
Huh?
Jim was so small, and they took your dad, you said, back to Stephenville for the funeral. Did you get to go?
Yes. The doctor said it'd be all right to go. He said, put pillows around me so the car wouldn't jolt me. And
they didn't have babies then like they do now, did they?
No. And he said that don't make a long trip in one day. Spend the night between here and Stephenville. So we did. And coming back the same thing. And we got down there when they was going to bury him, one of my cousins kept the baby.
You didn't take Malcolm and Wynell and...
No, they stayed with your mother and daddy.
With Daddy didn't go to the funeral? I believe Mother and Daddy went to the funeral.
Oh, maybe.
I bet somebody...
Oh, I took them with me, that's right.
You took them. Well, yeah. Uncle Claude had several brothers too here. I thought maybe somebody might have kept them.
No, I believe we took them, but...
I think Mother and Daddy had not been married very long.
No. And
that happened. Maybe a year.
So, anyway, my kinfolks there really took care of me. And we got up that morning the day we was going to bury him, and it was raining. And it quit raining for the funeral. Just quit raining. And then when we got back to
the house,
it went to raining again. That was something.
You know, this is always a sad time, but when the weather is a little more agreeable, it helps a lot.
Oh, I say it there.
I remember when Uncle Claude died, how cold it was. Seemed like about 6 degrees was the high for the day.
And I think, as well as I can remember, it went to 16 below zero that day.
And snow.
The night before we buried him the next day.
I think you're right. It was one of those unreal.
Oh, it was cold. Bud wouldn't let me get out of the car out at the cemetery. But he drove up real close where I could
be close by.
Of course, I married into a big Methodist family, but not one time did they ask me or act like they wanted me to join the Methodist church. But I went with them to the Methodist church, and I taught a little kids Sunday school class, enjoyed every minute of it. And one summer, I had a revival, and Malcolm was converted. And when they got ready for him to join the church, his daddy says, "Malcolm, don't you want to join the church?" He says, "Daddy, I don't know what to do. You're a Methodist and Mother's a Baptist. I didn't let my coattail touch me till I joined the Methodist church."
Aunt Dixie, I think that's a good thing. As long as we worship God and believe in Jesus.
And I've been happy with it, being in the church, and never did regret it 1 minute.
Well, you know, my daughter Terry and Greg go to the Methodist. Did you know that?
No.
They go to the Methodist down there, and they're real active and enjoy it a lot. Enjoy their Sunday school class, and they have, of course, it's a large, big church.
Yeah.
A whole lot different from here. I remember when we talked before, you told me something that interested me. I asked you kind of what kind of foods that you had to eat at your mother cooked, and you said a lot of boiled potatoes. And I thought that was, I figured you had fried potatoes a lot.
Oh, no. Mm-mm.
And why not?
It's easier to fix the boiled ones, I guess.
Yeah, I think you told me that you guess shortening cost too much. It was just,
well, it could have been
probably cheap. It was a lot better for you.
A lot of our shortening was we'd kill hogs and peel that fat off the entrails and render it out. And
that was what did you cook with that?
Oh, yeah.
Even make cakes and
biscuits and
cake, everything.
Yeah. So I just imagine that it was easier for Mother to fix the boiled potatoes than it was the fried potatoes anyway. I don't know.
You know, cooking for that large of a family, you have to think about that. I bet she started cooking after you had breakfast. It was time to start.
Yeah.
How old were you when you learned to cook and started helping her?
I remember very well when I began to make biscuits. It was Mother taught me how before Bill and Spunky and the little one was born. And I used to keep them in bed around 2 weeks when they had babies. So we had a big old wooden bowl, and she had me to sift the flour in there, and then round the place out in the middle, and put so much buttermilk, so much soda.
Did you measure it? Did you have measuring spoons?
Yeah.
To measure with?
So much salt and so much this and that. And so I guess I was around 10 years old, I guess.
When you learned to do that.
Yeah.
Daddy remembers your mother making tea cakes a lot. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Were they as good as Daddy thinks they were?
Yep. And Mother'd make a big batch of them, a big old flour sack full, you might say. And one day I guess she wanted to dry them out a little or something. She hung them up on a nail out on the porch. And we kids all knew where they were. And I remember just as well, Pete was the main one. He says, I'll crawl up there and get some. And that time he got up on the porch, started to reach up, and Mother says, no. And some others tried it, and she'd say, no. She was sitting where she could see.
But you couldn't see her. Yeah, that's funny that you told me that, because Dixie, my sister Dixie, remembers Daddy telling something similar to that a long time ago, and she said that Daddy said every time he'd reach his hand up, he'd hear from somewhere somebody say, I see you. Yeah. But he didn't see her. Did you ever get all the tea cakes you wanted? Or
Oh, yeah, but...
all you wanted, or did she give you maybe 4 or 5?
She just put them on the table, and I
And
guess
you
we
could
just eat